Hey folks, Troy Dooley, the Beachside CEO, and I am just finishing up. Had to go over to the Destin house today and take care of the pool and get it ready for Mama and the kids and get a little bit of work done this morning. And as I was doing all that, now I'm headed back to the main house. But as I was doing that, I was just going through some of the stuff from social media over the weekend. I was reviewing some of the newsletters that I'm a part of, some of the email threads, and I really started pondering something because, man, I have seen some awesome stuff during the last 27 days now, I believe, of what people have called the new normal. But there's also some things that I'm seeing that just have me somewhat concerned, maybe perplexed, might be a good way of looking at it, because I'm watching some things happen, and I'm watching some words being used. On a federal level, I'm seeing words called guidelines. These are just guidelines. On a state level, which listen, as a libertarian, I'm all for state rights. Got no problem with that. But as I'm looking at it, I'm seeing governors say this is a mandate. This is a whatever they call it, a writ that they've done, an executive order, stuff like that. And I'm pondering it because, when you look at the list of exemptions, which most people never look at the exemptions. But when you look at the exemptions, most of life in most states are still normal. I mean, it's safe at home, but then they exempt construction workers, they exempt grocery store workers, they exempt gas station attendants, they exempt truck drivers, they exempt all of our first responders. Thank you guys for all that you do. They exempt doctors, and I mean, the list goes on, and I'm sitting there looking at that, and I'm thinking, okay, most people don't read this, they just stay at home. But then I got to looking at something, because I think it was Sue Seward, or it may have been somebody else, put something up the other day that just caused me to start thinking through some stuff. And I got to realizing, wait a second, something that I'm seeing here that I thought would change in a bigger way isn't changing, and that is a divided nation, a nation divided amongst itself. And Jay Calvin and I had an email thread going, and some of the stuff that he had mentioned to me, I started digging in a little deeper and looking at some stuff, and it made me realize that the greatest civilization in history, and this could be, I guess, debatable, but in my mind, the greatest civilization in history lasted for thousands of years, actually, was the Roman Empire. And the Roman Empire was a republic. And yet, it ended up imploding on itself. It ended up disappearing, period. Makes you wonder how that can happen. And as I'm looking at everything that I'm watching now, I'm thinking, wow, this is interesting, because we're still going through this divisive period of time. And I think I have narrowed it down to one thing, and that's fear. We all transmit fear in a different way. For some people, that fear is stay at home, put on a mask, put on gloves, don't leave the house, don't talk to people. Other people's fear is manifested or it's transmitted, whatever word you want. I'm not trying to be fancy with my words right now. Is just the opposite. It's pretending that you don't fear anything. It's I'm not worried about it. I can't see the enemy. It's just like the flu. It's nothing to worry about. And I'm not debating either side right now. What I want is to think about is that 30 days ago, our mindset, our fears, the way we looked at this really hadn't changed either. We either trusted the government and everything they told us, and we wanted more big government, and we wanted more regulations, and we wanted more all that, or we didn't trust the government and we wanted small business. We didn't want the government in our affairs. We didn't want anything. Really, nothing has changed, except now that we call it the coronavirus. And now we're debating and dividing over who's right. Should we get rid of the experts up there? Because, I mean, seriously, what the heck do those experts for Trump really know when really their whole life has been studying AIDS? It hasn't been studying the coronavirus. I mean, and I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is these are the arguments that are out there. Or no, we can trust them because they're the experts that, don't I put up a meme last week, or not a meme, I just put up a little soundbite. We can't trust the world's best brain surgeon, Dr. Ben Carson, because he doesn't know anything about viruses. So it doesn't matter what he says, doesn't matter what Bill Bennett says, doesn't matter what Trump says. Trump is a businessman. He's not a doctor. See how it all starts spinning. And then all of a sudden you can't go to church like you've always gone to church. You can't leave your house. Apple and Google are going to start tracking everybody. Bill Gates is like, I'm pretty sure he's the twin brother to the Antichrist based on some of the stuff that I've seen out there. All this crap is just permeating. And the whole time I'm looking at this saying, but what about the Constitution? Because no matter what happens, the Constitution is what's to govern the actions. Now, I fully understand that I want to protect my neighbors, my fellow human beings, my fellow Americans, okay, bar none. I don't want a bunch of old people dying. I don't want a bunch of little kids dying. I don't want a bunch of men and women dying. I don't want a bunch of spring breakers dying. But the reality here is the experts are as freaking clueless as we are on this. And that's something that we need to all be thinking about right now. And that's not me being nasty, snarky, negative. What I'm saying is they admit we're clueless. We're still running the models. It's going to be a year and a half before we have a vaccine. It's going to be all this stuff. So when you look at all this stuff, and we're sitting here saying, okay, we're going to trust somebody else with our life, we go literally against the whole reason that the experiment called America was done in the first place. The founding fathers and the founding mothers of this country were sick and tired of somebody else dictating their life and telling them what was best for them. Now, trust me on this one. We've been doing social distancing. I don't have a problem with that. I'm going to protect my family the best I can. Did I stock up on ammo? You bet I did. Was I working on some guns this weekend? Absolutely I was. Am I paranoid as all get out? Absolutely not. But what I started to see is, and the question that came to mind over and over is, how far am I willing to go to give up my rights in the Constitution, my civil rights? Am I willing to consistently let somebody else tell me, well, you can't do this. You can't go to church like you used to. Heck, they're even now saying you can't even do drive-in church, which made no sense to me because you're at a drive-in or you're at your church with your windows up. It doesn't make any sense. So when I look at all of it, when I look at the fact that last week when I put up a meme about the fact that, hey, it wasn't just Ben Carson. Actually, I used his name on purpose just to kind of do a test. And what I found out was that people are more, they're so fearful that they will attack the messenger instead of looking at the actual message. Instead of focusing in on the fact that 98%, might even be more than 98%, of the people that contract the coronavirus, and since most people seem to be asymptomatic, they don't even know they have it, they're going to survive. And the 2% today, if we just took that stat, and the funny thing is, the stat that I gave is irrelevant. It's the actual formulation that would happen behind it. And that is, if 2% today is the mortality rate, then as more science gets involved, as more people actually get it, more antibodies are going to be created, more babies are going to be born that are immune to it, to where the mortality rate would go down, just like with every other virus in history. But that's not what I'm seeing. What I'm seeing is an undertone of politics, an undertone of trying to shift the way America culture is today. And it's all based off of the word pandemic, which you panic. you have this pandemonium. It's like it's crazy. And now, after putting together a $2 trillion stimulus package that my kids and your kids and my grandkids and probably my great-great-grandkids, if the good Lord doesn't come back, a whole heck of a lot of generations past me could be paying for this. Maybe not. Maybe the economy is going to shoot up and all the companies we're buying into is going to make us rich as a government and we're going to pay off the deficit. I don't know all that. Here's what I'm saying is, all this crap is politics to me. It's not about patriotism. It's not necessarily all about helping the economy, helping the American people. I do believe that's the underlying purpose. I truly believe that Democrats and Republicans, I don't care what side of the aisle that they're on, I do believe that deep inside, the majority, if not all of them, love the country, love the people in the country, and they have opposing worldviews. But I also believe that humans are humans, and there's some really funky crap that's taking place right now. Because I'm watching the world. I do know people now that have the coronavirus, or they're close enough to me that friends of theirs, babies in this case, have the coronavirus. So I believe that's there. But the question is, because the experts aren't sure, because the models themselves, based on the information that they want to give us, if you don't do X, Y, and Z, then ABC is going to happen. In other words, if you guys don't chill out, stop going to the beach, hang out at home, distance yourselves from people, don't go to bars, don't go to clubs, don't hang out with your neighbors. If you don't do that, millions of people are going to die. And if you do that, if we do stay 6 feet apart and we do use social distancing, then maybe, just maybe in America, just let's look at America for a second. In just America alone, we're only going to lose probably between 100 or 240,000. But then they come back and say, oh my gosh, we love you guys so much because of what you've done. Now we only think we're going to lose maybe 60,000. But something new that we found out, after all these other countries have had this, what we have now found out is it's not 6 feet of separation y'all have. You need to have 13 feet of separation. Bull crap. I mean, I'm sitting here looking at this and it's like, I just don't know. I know this, and this is the question. This is why I'm doing this. I'm going to let y'all go because this is a rant. This truly today is just a rant as I looked at all this. How far are you willing to go to let people step on your civil rights, to step on the constitutional rights you've been given? Look, most people watching this right now, matter of fact, 100% of the people that are watching this live on Facebook has already given up your right to privacy for Facebook and probably YouTube and probably Google and probably AT&T and Verizon and Sprint and everybody else, because we inadvertently surrendered the right to privacy when we joined all of these, bar none. But how far are we going to go to have somebody else take our rights? It's one thing when you say, okay, I'm going to give that up. I want to be on Facebook. I want to do some stuff. It's a whole nother thing when all of a sudden the elitist, I'm going to use that word, the politicians that we the people elected are doing this. Because think about this one for a minute. Nobody elected the experts that are talking to us on TV except for the president. Think of that one through. Are you really going to allow people that you don't have a clue who they are? Look, some of you have faith in Jesus Christ. You have faith in your religion, whatever it is. So sometimes you will just have faith in somebody that seems to be an expert. And by golly, Dr. Fauci and Birx and all that, they truly are. I mean, I just enjoy getting information from them. So don't get me wrong here. But they weren't elected to dictate to us what we were doing. If it's an elected official and we don't like what the Sam Hill they're doing, we can kick them out. We don't like what POTUS Trump's doing, we'll put POTUS Biden in, or some bizarre person that comes out of a brokered convention at the end of the year. But right now, we're being guided in some things that, honestly, I don't think anyone on here can tell me what the truth is, because you guys are going to see it one way or the other. Either you're pro coronavirus and we've got to do everything under the sun, and my rights aren't important, Troy, right now, just my life is. And in some cases, man, I fully do understand that, because I've talked to so many people that are starting to understand what I understand, and they realize that the deaths of the coronavirus really aren't from the coronavirus. It's from the underlying medical conditions that are there, but they're just marking it down. And Dr. Birx actually said this the other day. They're just marking it down as the cause being coronavirus. That might make sense in some cases, but the reality is that the coronavirus may have exacerbated a quicker death to the underlying circumstance. It may have triggered something that was even more powerful. But at the end of the day, it's still this underlying situation. So I'm sitting there thinking, man, now I don't even know what numbers are skewed and what numbers aren't. We already know that they don't know how many people have had this. They've admitted that too. They don't know how many are asymptomatic and just it blows right on through them and they don't get it. So before we all just blindly follow the herd over the cliff, I would suggest that we really dig deep and analyze some things so that we're listening and studying and understanding everything that's going on. I'm not talking about from a conspiracy theorist type deal and all that crap. What I'm saying is, know all of the facts. Don't just listen to CNN. Don't listen to Fox News. Don't just listen to the experts that are out there. Study it all. For you that are prayerful, pray about it. Pray to make sure that you're doing everything right for your family, everything that's right for your community. But don't just blindly, all of a sudden, give up the culture that for almost 260 years has governed our way of life. Because if we're not careful and we blindly go into this because we're led by fear in one facet or another, then I honestly believe we could end up shifting a culture and not necessarily the way we want to. We could be slowly eroding the Constitution of the United States and the amendments of the United States. We could slowly be eroding some of the things that we don't realize that is eroding. And that's what the more I've looked at this weekend, the more I've seen the true division on both sides. Although the political rhetoric has lowered in the traditional sense, we're still seeing those undertones. President Trump didn't do something fast enough. Joe Biden talked about this. The Democrats this, the liberals that, the Republicans this, the conservatives that. Just slow down and analyze everything you can get your hands on. And if you don't have time to do that, and I know some of you don't, then I'm going to tell you right now that since the dawn of time, gut instinct, your intuition, your common sense has allowed you to live this long. And now may be the time that you really have a gut check. You have a come to Jesus meeting, a behind the wood pile get together, whatever you call it in your neck of the woods. You need to be given some deep breath to, hey, what's actually going on? And why? Why am I so freaking paranoid and fearful over what people are telling me when I look around me? There's not a whole lot has changed, except now people can go into banks wearing masks. They can go into a grocery store covering up their face. Just a few months ago, we didn't allow people to even show up at certain events covering up their face because it can incite a riot. And now all of a sudden everybody is allowed to cover up their face. I'm just saying, think some of this stuff through, guys. I would like to know your comments on this. How far are you willing to go to give up your constitutional rights, to give up some civil liberties? It is not being allowed to go to a synagogue, a worship center, a mosque in America, is not being allowed, is being told that you can't congregate for worship, that you have to do it in your house, you have to do it online. How far different is that to what the Romans were trying to tell people right before their fall? Think about that for a minute. And again, this has to do with Muslims, it has to do with Hindu, it has to do with Christians, it has to do with the Wiccan. I don't care what it is. If people see it as a religious gathering, you were told to stay at home and not to meet. Not even with just 10 people. You were told not to do that too. That's just one area. The other area is telling that you can't leave your house. You're being told when you can leave your house, who can leave their house. Think this through and say to yourself, is there any political crap going on here that I just don't know about? Could be Democrats, could be Republicans, could be both of them working in tandem together. I don't know. Is the fact that the experts don't even have all the numbers, so they're throwing out the scare tactics, is that any different than sometimes what you do with your own kids? It's what you do sometimes with your spouse, for that matter. You want to use scare tactics to try to bring people under your control. Analyze it, think about it. I would like to know some comments on this one, because as I'm looking through this, again, I'm starting to realize that what I see bringing communities together, because I'm seeing a lot of grassroots, awesome community working together, helping homeless people, helping the older people, man, helping younger. I mean, that's awesome. But are we still a nation divided because of the political overtones of everything that's going on? Let me know your thoughts. Stay positive, stay strong, and guys, best of all, stay as safe as you can under the uncertainty of this crazy virus. We'll see you later.